We had a Democrat in the White House. We needed the Democrat in the White House to send in the Army Corps of Engineers to dig up the poison pipes and replace the pipes. See, we don't like to speak about this out loud because we loved our president and we miss him dearly now. But the fact is that anytime we've depended on the mainstream Democratic Party, people have been let down. And the times when we've been able to turn to people that were different, that were willing to take a risk, those are the times when things get better. Start with Franklin Roosevelt. Things got better because he believed in something called Social Security. He believed that people, when they lost their job, should have unemployment insurance. You need to get people to come out on Monday night. You need to tell them this is going to make a difference. If we end up with the same old Democrat, it's going to be a rough road between now and November. We lose when we go safe. We win when we take a risk. If we're going to go safe, 84, 88, 2000, 2004, 2016, we lose. When we take a risk, 2008, we're an unknown governor from Arkansas. In 92, we win. This is what we have to do. And I'll tell you, there's no greater encouragement than what the DNC did today. Democratic National Committee decided to remove the rule that you have to prove that you have so many people donating to your campaign. Bernie has the most donors, has raised the most money. The average donation is $18.50. And Mike Bloomberg brought his way into the next debate by getting the DNC to suspend the rule that you don't have to show that you have any support, that you don't have to have any donors. Bloomberg gets to be on that stage. And my first thought was, what is Cory Booker and Julian Castro thinking today? Yeah. For the DNC to have rules that ensure that there's no people of color on the stage, but we can have a billionaire on the stage, that's the other party. That's the other side. What is going on here? You can see, and then the story that came out in Political just an hour ago, that there are members of the DNC meeting this weekend to try to figure out how to stop Bernie. They're having a stop Bernie within, not Trump, not the Republicans. They've got their own fear of Bernie. This is the people that are supposed to be working for us. But I'm here to tell you, from Flint, Michigan, they don't work for us. They don't work for us. That's why Bernie has built a revolution and a movement here. That's why, and building this movement across the country, that's why Bernie is #1 in the polls. #1 in California, #1 in Iowa, #1 in New Hampshire. All these of all the candidates running, Democratic and Republican this year, the one with the highest approval rating is Bernie Sanders. Oh, all of them. They did a poll recently of the 50 states to find out which states, where are the senators are the most popular in their states. Out of 100 senators, who do you think came in at #1? Bernie Sanders is the most beloved of any senator in any state. How about this news from this morning? Headline: active duty service members. Who are they supporting? The story said the following: more active duty service members have donated to the Bernie Sanders campaign than to any other candidate that's running for president this year. These are our sons and daughters in the military. They want Bernie. He's been #1 with Latinos for the last 5 months. 2 weeks ago, CNN poll, Bernie Sanders #1 with non-white voters. It's across the whole, I mean, it's just, when they say Bernie can't win, why is he number one in all these polls? Why is he the most beloved candidate running? Why are more military, active duty service members donating to him than any other candidate? They're trying to tell us something when they say Bernie can't win. What they really mean to say is, we don't want Bernie to win. And we want you to think that he can't win. Because we all know what job one is in 2020, don't we? Stop Trump. Remove Trump. We are the Trump removers. Bernie is the Trump stopper. Bernie has the best chance. Well, every poll for the last few weeks has shown that Bernie, right now, 9 points ahead of his nearest rival of Democrats, 9 points, beats Trump head-to-head. If it's just Bernie and Trump, Bernie wins. The Democratic Party in West Virginia, where Trump won the most votes, 68%. In the year after the 2016 election, the Democrats in West Virginia wanted to find out what would it have been like if it had been Trump-Sanders. So they conducted a poll. Now remember, Trump won West Virginia by 68%. I believe Hillary had 29%. 68 to 29%. Trump, way, way ahead, 68%. In the poll, had it been Trump-Sanders, Bernie, 48%, Trump, 46%, in West Virginia. I mean, that's the real America. Nobody's sitting around talking about all the things the pundits are talking about. Each of the pundits, the big pundits, David Frum and Jonathan Chait, and there were like 4 this week that wrote these op-eds that said, Michael Gerson, George W. Bush speechwriter, they all said Bernie can't win. Bernie can't win. And every single one of them were proponents of the Iraq War. Every single one of them were participants in getting the country behind the war in Iraq. Haven't we had enough of this? Aren't you tired of listening to these pundits? They're trying to tell us one thing because they want the other thing to happen. The last thing they want is Medicare for all. The last thing they want is to make sure that you can afford daycare. The last thing they want is for women to be paid the same as men. You just go down the list of things. Bernie is with the majority of Americans. The majority of Americans are against the $7.25 minimum wage. Bernie says it should be at least $15 an hour. That's where the majority of Americans are at. The majority, it's kind of like, what are they so afraid of a Sanders administration? Which, by the way, I promise you, thanks to what the Republicans have done this week, will be coupled with a Democratic Senate being elected in November. We will have the Democrats there. So with Bernie in the White House, we need 3 Democrats in the Senate. That's it, folks. Just 3. And the Democratic House. And this year, there's another like 30 AOCs running for Congress. So Bernie will have the support to get done what needs to get done, and that's what they're really afraid of. They're really, and Trump's afraid of him too. Listen to the Lev Parnas tape this week. Did anybody hear this? Just type it in Google. Lev Parnas tape, Trump, he taped the phone call. And in the phone call, Trump says that he's really glad that Hillary did not make Bernie her running mate. Because he said that would have been tough. That would have been tough had Bernie been the running mate. Trump is afraid of Bernie. Trump is afraid because, you see, Trump won't be able to say drain the swamp again because he is the swamp. And the swamp drainer really is Bernie Sanders for his entire life. Trump won't be able to lie. That's why Trump won't debate Bernie. There will be no debate. He will refuse to do it. He'll come up with a reason. I don't think it'll be bone spurs, but it'll be something. It'll be something. And boom. And every time you hear something like this, where he can't win, or what's the one former presidential candidate? Nobody likes him. Nobody likes him. Really?
That's why he's the most popular senator in the 50 states. That's why he's the most popular candidate running for office this year. That's why he's got the most volunteers. That's why he's got the most donations. And that's why our active duty service members have given more to him than any other candidate. That's how nobody likes it.
I mean, really stop lying to us. Please stop lying to the people. The people know. The people are fed up with and sick and tired of it. They know what democratic socialism is. It's FDR. It's FDR, social security. All the things to help people when they're in need, when they need relief. That's what Bernie is standing for, and that's why they don't want him in there. What's the worst that's going to happen? Let's say you're still on the fence yourself. What's the worst that's going to happen if Bernie Sanders is elected President of the United States? Let me think. When I get sick, I won't lose my home. No, not that. My daughter will be paid the same as the man she's working next to. That's the worst thing? That's the worst thing. Let's see, what else? What else is going to happen? Oh, I'm going to have help with daycare. Whoa, wouldn't that be horrible if there was help with daycare? You go down the whole list, really. If you're working at the Dairy Queen, you're going to make $15 an hour. Oh, be still. I'm telling you, friends, we all know the lie, don't we, by now? We've all seen the struggle. And we know it's not really about party affiliation. We know that the party that says they're for us. Somebody said to me in Flint, back around 2015, 2016, the cavalry isn't coming to save us. And it beat them down to the point we lost Michigan. And so a bunch of us said in 2018, let's get ballot proposals, and that will help maybe encourage people to come back where they can make law, as opposed to hoping them to vote for a politician. And so we got people back out to vote in 2018 in Michigan. We threw out the two Republicans who represent the white suburbs of Detroit and replaced them with two Democratic women. And we threw out all the Republicans in the top offices in Lansing, our state capital. And yes, in just 2 years we did this. And we did it because we had two ballot proposals legalizing marijuana, which doubled the youth vote. I don't know why. From our last off-year election, doubled it. And we made it part of our Constitution. We had this ballot proposal that said, if you voter suppress or gerrymander illegally, it will be a crime. It will be a crime to gerrymander. And that passed by 61%. The people of the state of Michigan, the marijuana passed by almost 60%. And people came back out and voted. We now have a woman as our governor, we have a black lieutenant governor, we have a lesbian attorney general, and we have a single mom who's the Secretary of State. That's who's running Michigan right now, just 2 years after Michigan voted for Trump. And we're going to see that happen in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. And I believe, listen, you gave us Barack Obama. It wouldn't have happened had you not gone to the caucus that night in Iowa. A grateful nation thanks Iowa. And we stopped complaining about you being the first. Because you did this. You did this wonderful thing. And then you voted for Obama. Iowa. You know, you have a great tradition of being for the person that is hurting, that's had the boot on their neck. We just passed down the road, I saw the sign, the John L. Lewis Museum.
Yes, Lucas.
Lucas.
Yeah. Yes, I know you also have the world's, we've seen the world's giant popcorn ball. We've seen Bridges of Madison County. We have seen Field of Dreams. And we went to the place where they make Hostess cupcakes. Oh, and we were in Cedar Rapids where you can smell the crunchberry being made. But look, you're a lot like us in Michigan. You know, you're landlocked. That's really, you know, we have a lot of water surrounding us, but we're really kind of the same people, aren't we? We are the Big Ten sisterhood in brotherhood. And everywhere I've gone, I've seen Flint in the state. I've seen the despair, and people have had enough. And when they've had enough, they look for something very different. They don't look for the same old, same old. They don't worry about anything. They don't listen to anybody saying anything. I watched Bernie over in Dubuque a couple weeks ago, and somebody asked him a question. He said, "Are you told?" And he said, "Well, here's what you get when you're my age. I have a lifetime record of what I've done. You can check it." And he's been that same person his entire life, fighting for us. So the other thing is, when you get to this age, you don't really change. It's like what you see is what you get. Which, isn't that refreshing to know we're going to vote for a candidate who will never sell out, who can't be bought. It's so exciting to think about this happening. It starts in just 3 days, right here in your state. Please convince people to come out with you on Monday night. Tell them that Iowa can make history once again. You don't want the same old thing. You don't want the same. God, I saw the commercial this morning on TV when I got up. Vote for this candidate. I think you know who I mean, because he's the safe candidate. He's the safe candidate. Safe. Where has safe gotten us, my friends? It's not safe. If you're single and you're on Match.com and some guy wrote in his profile, "I'm safe," enough said. On that note, let me bring out our special guest. She is the wife of our next president of the United States. She is an activist in her own right and has spent years fighting for all of us. Please welcome to Osceola, Dr. Jane Sanders.
It's good to be here in Osceola.
It's good to have you.
Thank you. I want to thank Jean, who is representing the National Nurses United here, and want to thank her and her organization for all the work they've done in pushing Medicare for all and taking care of patients and just being nurses. So thank you, Jean. Thank you, Michael, for that kind introduction, and he's doing an amazing job in terms of getting the word out about what's important, ideas that are bringing various people onto his new podcast, The Rumble, fastest growing podcast in America, I think. I think they have 3 million listeners already, and I was honored to be on there today. I want to also just recognize, when I go around, I like to know a little bit about the communities that we're going to, and I get a real sense of community here in Osceola, and the way that people come together, such as the nights, the concerts, Thursday nights in the park, and featuring young artists throughout the Clerk Area Arts Council. The arts and culture are really important to Bernie and I as well. We had Thursday nights in the park when he was mayor. We had free concerts, and I think in this campaign we have an arts and culture division, which is headed up as a volunteer by our son Dave, who is here in Iowa but not with me tonight because he and his daughter Ella and son Dylan are out door knocking in Des Moines. So I wanted to just tell you, I know Bernie comes and he speaks and he talks about policy, and of course if I'm going to speak about Bernie, I'm going to talk about policy because that's who he is. But I want to tell you a little bit about him, our history. I met Bernie in 1981 when I was a community organizer and he was running for mayor. The neighborhood groups went to meet the incumbent 5-term mayor, and they were not happy with a big tax increase that he was proposing. And I started to ask question after question after question. He said, "Now you sound like Bernie Sanders." I said, "Who's Bernie Sanders?" Well, he's running as a candidate. And I said, "Oh, let's organize a debate." So the first time I heard him, I felt like he embodied everything I ever believed in. I was surprised. I was not expecting a lot. I just was an organizer and had the debate. But it felt like he understood the struggles that I was dealing with as a mother, as a member of the community, as somebody that was working temporary jobs and then eventually full-time jobs that were cut off. So it felt like he understood my reality. And I looked around, and I think a lot of other people felt that way as well. He won that election by 10 votes. So that tells you, if anybody says, "Oh, it's snowy," or it's not so important that I'm there. It's not. Everybody in Vermont, everybody in Burlington tells me I was one of those 10 votes. So Caucus. But now, 40 years later, almost 40 years later, I can still tell you that he embodies everything that I believe in. He's a man of integrity, and his foundation are his principles and values, and he doesn't veer from them. And I think that that's important for people to know, because I've recognized the response in the audience when he speaks sometimes. I don't know how many here have listened to Bernie at all? Okay. Well, I know that I sometimes am very pleased to be on stage and then looking out at the audience, and sometimes people were there just as I was at the beginning, listening and considering. And I see the faces and their stances change as they recognize this person is talking to me. This person is caring about me. And it just makes me so proud to be at his side. So as someone who's known him for, as I said, almost 40 years, I can tell you that he is as honest as the day is long, as consistent as the sun rising. I think it's important that people know that at this particular time, because I think that we need a president we know will not just say the right things today, but who has a record that demonstrates that he will follow through and deliver once he's in the White House. And that's exactly who Bernie is and who he has always been. The Bernie Sanders who, as a college student, was arrested for protesting segregation at the University of Chicago in their housing, and in the housing in the city of Chicago itself, is the Bernie Sanders who will, as president, fight institutional racism, reform our criminal justice system, and enact a humane immigration system. Bernie was frugal as a mayor with taxpayers' money. He'll be frugal with your money as president. But he also expanded the city services. What he did when he first came in was say to our community, how can I help better the quality of life in this community? How can I make it a place that is the best place to raise families, that young people feel that they have a voice? And so he started 4 new offices. First off, he rejected that tax increase that the incumbent mayor had wanted and didn't enact it. But he expanded city services and he started a youth office. I was the volunteer coordinator of that. He started an arts council. He started a women's council, and he started a community and economic development office in order to support entrepreneurialism and small business in our community, which I think most people don't even know about him. That's why I raise it, so that you understand that he is very hands-on. He thinks about priorities. What are the priorities for our city, for our state, for our country, and how, for the people who live there, and how do I readjust our spending so that we're spending on the things that improve the quality of life for the individual. He is going to be a president who delivers a Green New Deal and transitions our economy to 100% renewable energy and fights effectively climate change. The Congressman Bernie Sanders, who fought the bipartisan efforts to cut Social Security, will not only, as president, he will not only protect Social Security, but he will expand it so that our seniors can retire with dignity. And Bernie Sanders, who fought to protect family farms in Vermont, will be the president, Bernie Sanders, who takes on agribusiness monopolies that are hurting farmers and farm workers in Iowa and across this country. He showed courage, the courage and conviction and judgment to oppose the Iraq War. And he, as president, will finally end the endless wars and focus on rebuilding our international alliances by creating a foreign policy built on peace and cooperation rather than military adversity. He will work with, one of the first things that he will do is call together the people, the leaders of the hemisphere and then the entire world to say, can't we reallocate our military budgets and not spend our money fighting each other, but fighting our common enemy, which is climate change. And the Bernie Sanders who runs his campaigns on small donations. Thank you for those of you in the audience that have sent in small donations, because they are the hallmark of our campaign. He'll be the president who overturns the disastrous Citizens United program. So in other words, Bernie's long and consistent record as a champion for the multiracial, multi-generational working class is unflinching. That's why I and you and millions of supporters know that amidst the continued onslaught of corporate lobbying, special interests, and a corrupt political system, he will stand steadfast in fighting for us. He won't give in to those special interests. We trust him because of the moral clarity that he has demonstrated throughout his lifetime. Now, we know it's not enough to just be on the right side of history. Donald Trump is the most dangerous president in modern American history, and we need a nominee who is best positioned to defeat him. And the good news is, that's Bernie. He's a candidate who Donald Trump will not be able to vilify as inauthentic or hypocritical. With Bernie, what you see is what you get, and that's a huge advantage. Beyond that, the polls from 2016 to now, virtually every poll has Bernie defeating Donald Trump. And recently, I don't know if you saw an audio tape made its way out in the world of Donald Trump saying something a couple of years ago, that he was most concerned that Hillary would pick Bernie as a vice president because then it would have been much more difficult for him to win. He knows that Bernie is a threat to his presidency. So I think you'll see some pushback and some strategy to go against Bernie from Donald Trump. We're already seeing it, unfortunately, from the Democratic establishment in terms of the negative ads that as you turn on TV, you'll see things that make no sense. They say that he can't win in Wisconsin and Michigan. Well, in fact, he did win in the primary. And a number of other things. But beyond defeating Trump, we need to talk about Bernie's agenda. And I know you're pretty familiar with it, but I'd like to just go over it a little bit. Bernie's ideas about Medicare for all, decent wages, tuition-free college, renewable energy, and criminal justice reform were dismissed in 2015 and 2016 as radical and extreme. They'd never happened. But that reality has changed. We've seen state and city after city decide to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I went to the University of Tennessee, which is not a radical university. They now have tuition-free college, as do a number of other colleges, including even medical schools. So once an idea is out there and people start talking about it, it actually has a chance of becoming reality. These ideas were not in the public discourse before Bernie ran in 2015. Can you imagine a Bernie Sanders having the bully pulpit as president, talking to your needs, the interest of the public good rather than private profit only? I think it'll make a big difference in terms of saying, what can we do? What can we accomplish as a nation? His agenda is supported by millions of Americans who are fed up with a political and economic establishment that works quite well for the very, very wealthy and leaves many Americans behind working longer hours, having lower wages, and having rising healthcare costs. His agenda is supported by millions of Americans who knows it's not radical, excuse me, who know it's not radical that people have universal health care without going bankrupt, just like every other industrialized nation in the world. His agenda is supported by millions of Americans who know that we must not hold back the vast potential of America's young people with $1.5 trillion in student debt. And our agenda is supported by the majority of Americans who know we have no more time to waste in effectively fighting climate change. That means transitioning our economy to 100% clean energy through a Green New Deal, and in the process create millions of good-paying jobs for the 21st century. During this campaign, Bernie and I have traveled around the country, talking to people and listening to their experiences, hearing about their hardships, learning about their dreams. Clearly, we are a country at a crossroads with our unique diversity, our yearning for a better future, but also our sadness as a political and economic system fails us. We've come face to face with inequality, poverty, racism, and injustice that continues to hold our nation back from its promise and potential. But people are beginning to recognize that the difficulties they are facing are not due to personal failures, but due to systemic deficiencies. And that's good news. We need to recognize, stop the culture of shame. If somebody is having a difficult time, it's often not their fault. We are all one medical emergency away from bankruptcy and from many difficulties. So the good news is that we're beginning to recognize we can do better as a country. Our job now is to reject thinking small in this great country. when we have the courage to think big, when we have the courage to stand up united, to fight for the promise of America, most of our ambitions are not out of our reach. We are America. We went to the room, we went to the room. We went to the moon 50 years ago. And now maybe our moonshot for this generation is justice. This campaign, the motto is not me, us. And that means our movement is bigger than Bernie, bigger than one campaign, bigger even than the presidency. It's about our country's future. And it relies on all of you to make it a better, a bright one. Transformative change will only take place if we stand together, united by a common purpose, a coherent vision, and a robust policy framework. Individuals across this country are working in their own areas, in their own communities, to build the future we want. We need to stand together and have that be the foundation of our grassroots movement. I believe in leadership. I think it's extremely important that we have Bernie as the person that articulates and leads and inspires people. But without the people that are inspired, standing up and making change after change, small change and large change in their own communities, we will get nowhere. So it'll depend. One thing I would mention to you is if you elect Bernie Sanders as your president, you will be very active. You will not be left, oh, well, thanks very much, we don't need you anymore. He will be calling upon you to participate in a vibrant democracy and to make it the best democracy this country has ever seen. He will always be a fighter for you. He'll never bow to any corporate or special interest. That's the president we need. The kind who will not only make promises, but make change. The kind who will not only raise hopes, but will fulfill them. The kind who will not only praise peace, but attain it. Of course, as I said, the establishment, there will be many efforts to stop him. I just read on the way here that some are trying to change the DNC rules so the superdelegates can vote on the first ballot. But I think better minds will prevail. People who gave their word about something, I think, will continue it. And we're hoping not only to change this country, but to have the Democratic Party be as strong and straightforward and positive as we would like. Anyway, the opposition is a sign of our success. They know that if we stand together and we don't get demoralized, that we're on the verge of a historic victory, and that we will transform this country. So my request to you is simple. Keep door knocking, keep texting, keep phone calling. Caucus, but it's not just you who needs to caucus. Please, it's your family, your friends, your neighbors, your co-workers. Don't just ask them to caucus. Bring them to caucus. Have a party before, a party after, whatever, bring them. And we are in this together. And together we can create real and lasting change for our country today and for future generations. Let's do it together. Thank you. I'd love to answer any concerns. Yes, ma'am.
As First Lady, what are you going to do for the youth in this nation?
Well, excuse me. As I said at the beginning, Bernie, when the first week, the week after he was elected, 3 weeks before he actually took office, he brought together a number of people to say, how can we make Burlington a better place? And one of those things was to start a youth office. And the youth office then, which I headed as a volunteer for a long time, what it did was listen to the kids and the families and the teachers and the students and teenagers and everybody in the community to say, how can this be better? And what we found was they wanted a voice. They wanted a voice at the table, just like we all do. They wanted to make a difference. They didn't want programs to deal with their problems, you know. They weren't asking for drug abuse programs or anything that labeled them from, this is who I am. This is my problem, and that's who I am. They were saying, see me, see who I am as an individual, and help me reach my full potential. So we started after-school programs in the schools that are still going today. We started a teen center that went for 32 years and was extremely, became a mecca for musicians going from New York to Boston to Montreal. They stopped at this teen center. We started a newspaper that let them give their voice, you know, talk about what they wanted to talk about and address the issues and speak up about what was happening at the city council, what was happening in the legislature. So I guess my promise to you is that what we will do is make sure everybody's voices are heard, the voices for positive change, the solutions to the problems that individuals of different generations face will be the ones that we listen to more intently. That we will say, okay, young people, you do know what you need. Because it worked in Burlington. When I look at a lot of the people that came, and they went across the spectrum in terms of poor to rich. I mean, everybody, it was a microcosm of Burlington. And they now are active. So many kids I hear, they're active in their communities. They're city councilors, they're representatives, they're nonprofit leaders, but they felt empowered to be who they were. And that's, I think, all any of us want. So, yes, ma'am.
One of the problems with wages in this area in a lot of places is not just the minimum wage, which is low, but part-time employment in jobs that could be performed by full-time employees, so that people have to work 2 different jobs and juggle the schedules. So what's Bernie's plan for that?
Well, one of the things is that having a Medicare for all will help address that, because you know there is a mandate that if you have a certain number of jobs in small business, you have to have health insurance for your employees, so for full-time employees. So we see all sorts of gamemanship going on where people hire part-time employees, or they quietly hire people whose spouses have health care elsewhere, because it can break the back of small business. It costs a lot. So what Medicare for All will do will stop that. That'll be out of the equation. The employers will actually save a lot of money because it's not an employer-based program any longer. The employees will be able to get the full-time jobs without the negatives. I mean, honestly, if you're an employer and you can have one full-time worker without paying more, like $12,000 or $15,000 more for their health care, you're more likely to do that than having 2 part-time employees. So that's number one. The minimum wage is really just the floor. If you raise the minimum wage, other people have to go higher. So the idea is not to just say, oh, $15 an hour is fantastic. It's not. But it is the basic to make sure that people are not living in poverty. If you work 40 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. So does that answer your question? Okay, thanks. Yes, sir.
I'm from Puerto Rico, and in the island we cannot vote for the president of the United States, even though we are part of the United States supposedly. But here that I'm in Iowa now, I will definitely vote, and I will caucus on Monday. And I was undecided, so after hearing your talk, I will be caucusing for Bernie. So my question is, there are 3.5 American citizens down in Puerto Rico, and there are many other American citizens living in territories. So what's the plan in the Bernie's, in the Sanders administration to make sure that those American citizens are treated just like any other citizen and not as second-class citizens like my family is being treated down in Puerto Rico right now?
Well, we have Carmen Yulín Cruz, who is the mayor of San Juan, is co-chair of our campaign. So we hear this. She won't let us do anything less than treat everybody equally. We've been down to Puerto Rico, and our hearts go out to you. I hope your family and everybody is okay down there. But we will be doing everything we can. If you're a U.S. citizen, you should have all the rights and responsibilities that a U.S. citizen would. Yes, sir.
Daniel Ellsberg, in his book, The Doomsday Machine, says that we've been living in the threat of extinction for at least over 50 years. Part of that we didn't even realize from nuclear winter. So my question is, does Bernie Sanders have a public statement regarding stepping back from use of nukes on first strike? No nuke first strike.
Well, I think he's always felt that preemptive war of any kind is not the right way to go. And I haven't talked to him about that specifically, but I have no doubt that he does not believe that we should do a nuclear first strike, and he will do everything that he can to avert nuclear proliferation and war. So
If he would make a public statement that this diplomatic message that all options are on the table that Trump has used most recently, and if he would state that this is no longer, and that's a presidential option.
We'll make him president. Well, thank you all very much. I really appreciate your coming. Please caucus. Please talk to your neighbors and friends. If you have any concerns, any answers that you cannot, any questions that you cannot answer, please check out BernieSanders.com or call the Iowa offices. There are lots of field offices everywhere, and I appreciate everybody coming and being so involved in our democracy.
Stay live. Hold on one second. I'm about to come on.
Knock on doors. We need folks to be there at caucus night. The only way we're going to win is by doing this work. So if you plan on supporting Bernie, this is how we're going to win. So we'll be here with clipboards. If you see us, feel free to stop by and sign up for the show.
Hey, sir. Hey there, Jordan Sheridan. You just heard Jane Sanders speaking, as well as Michael Moore speaking. We're in Osceola, Iowa, which is about 45 minutes from Des Moines. Jane Sanders just actually made news here. I don't know if you guys have been following the news of the day. A couple hours ago, the DNC changed its rules for the debate. A couple hours ago, the DNC changed its rules for the debate to basically allow Michael Bloomberg to debate. They are eliminating the threshold where you need a certain amount of individual donors. They're eliminating that, so you don't need. It doesn't matter how many donors you have anymore, which is part of the one threshold that hurt Cory Booker, didn't allow him to debate, and didn't allow Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang to qualify for certain debates. So they're getting rid of that, basically to allow Michael Bloomberg to debate, because Michael Bloomberg does not have any contributors. He's completely self-funding the campaign. So that was the first thing the DNC did today. But the second thing, which was Jane Sanders actually making news. About an hour or two ago, a story went out on Politico.com, and the story was basically talking about some members of the Democratic National Convention in private meetings, sending text messages to each other, talking about possibly changing the rules back. Remember, there was this big fight over superdelegates for the last 3 years since 2016, where Bernie Sanders, progressives, wanted to basically eliminate the superdelegates or severely decrease their power. So it was decided that the superdelegates would not be able to vote on the first ballot. They would be eligible to vote if it went to a second ballot. Well, Politico reported earlier that there are DNC members so scared, so scared that Bernie Sanders might win and be the nominee that they are actually talking about reversing that and allowing superdelegates to vote on the first ballot, meaning basically changing the rules, in my view, rigging the rules, so that if Bernie Sanders, let's say, were to have more delegates, more pledged delegates than any other clinch denomination on the first ballot, basically these DNC members are reversing it back so that superdelegates would be in the position on the first ballot to prop up another candidate who had less actual pledged delegates than Bernie Sanders. So Jane Sanders, while speaking here at this event, I don't have the exact full quote, but she did say, "We hope those who made promises keep their word." She did not mention Tom Perez by name, but you would have to assume those who made promises are talking about the highest levels of the Democratic National Committee, which would be Chairman Tom Perez. So I just tweeted it out from here. Hopefully it gets out. It's not Bernie Sanders himself responding. Obviously, Bernie Sanders has been stuck in D.C. At the impeachment trial, but it is his wife, not so subtly calling out Tom Perez. Anybody want to speak? We're live here.
Not really.
All right.
Are you asking questions? Or
Yeah. Come on over. Don't be shy.
Sure.
What's your name?
Bill Kelso from Osceola.
From Osceola?
Yeah.
Was this your first event ever for Bernie?
Yes.
What'd you think?
Oh, I'm impressed with him. I'm not. He wasn't one of my top choices, to caucus Monday, but I was impressed with everything he had to say. Like he said, maybe we shouldn't go with a safe person. That's what they've been saying all along, that we need to go with like Biden or Buttigieg or Amy. And
so you would consider yourself maybe a more moderate type Democrat?
yeah. But like they said, if you get a safe candidate, maybe end up losing. And so.
Well, it looks like we had a safe candidate in 2016, and that didn't, according to them, the safe candidate, and that didn't work so well.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, she was ahead till about 2 weeks before the election, and she won by 3 million popular vote. So,
what's some issues that are of the top priority to you?
Well, climate change for sure, and the wage, I've always been for the working man, and I used to be a Republican, and I switched over after Reaganomics and them favoring only the rich, and the rich breaking unions, and et cetera, et cetera. And,
You know what's interesting to me? I'm curious if you've heard of any of this from the media, but the media has kind of painted Joe Biden as kind of like middle-class Joe and working man Joe. But he's actually done a lot of things that are anti-union, voted for a lot of things that were, NAFTA, which sent a lot of jobs to other countries. He's taken a lot of money now from companies that union bust. And I feel like a lot of voters don't necessarily know that because the media has portrayed him as this like middle-class guy.
right. I mean, you need to listen to some of the things. Some of the things back then, like the Iraq War, there were an awful lot of Democrats that voted, to go into Iraq, and then Hillary was one of them for sure. And John Kerry, you know, and it hurt him in the election. So there's probably a lot of things like that, you know, even segregation, you know. Biden has got some people against him because of that.
Right.
But, you know, he's leading the pack in South Carolina, so he's...
Well, who knows if he'll be leading the pack if he loses Iowa and New Hampshire.
Well, yeah, that's true.
All right, so you were looking at Biden. What other candidates were you looking at?
Buttigieg, I mean, mainly just because he's more moderate. And, this Medicare for all, everybody's scared of it because of socialism, and you just hear it constantly. And so I don't know how much weight that's going to pull.
Well, I remember them running ads calling Barack Obama a scary socialist, in some cases a communist, won twice. So, you know, I mean, I'm obviously a little bit younger, but I think that for more people that were born not as, you know, further out from the Cold War, they're not hearing socialism. They're just hearing like human rights, health care, wage increase. It doesn't sound like when Bernie talks, you know, the socialism argument doesn't stick because what he's talking about is an extenuation of Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Yeah, true. And look where a lot of people would be without it, you know. So we've had socialism, you know, that goes clear back to the 30s, early 30s. So it's people need to stop and think, you know. If you're talking socialism, you know, it's happened in the past, and it's just part of history. I think it's going to happen,
and we still have it. I mean, Social Security is a socialist program. The VA, there's a lot of socialist programs. And Bernie actually brings it up, which I think might be a good contrast with Trump. We have socialism, corporate socialism. Amazon doesn't pay any taxes. Walmart doesn't pay any taxes. You have all these subsidies we give to these companies. So who's paying for that? You.
I know I got a nephew that he's a Republican, and he said, "Oh, welfare, that's just terrible." Well, look what they're doing for the rich. They don't need it, and here they're helping them out, you know, tremendously, and it's just a joke.
Right.
And we'll get through it. It's never.
So today has you reconsidering, I guess, even though Bernie wasn't here. You liked a lot of the things you heard.
Yeah, I mean, most of it is kind of mainstream. A lot of the things that the other candidates say, a lot of the same things, but it's.
Yeah, I think I actually went to South Bend, Indiana, to cover Pete, and it really blew my mind because most of what I learned was not so positive from the actual people who live there. But the media has made this guy seem like a Leave It to Beaver, you know, next generation. But I mean, if you're a black person in South Bend, Indiana, life got worse under this mayor. I'm assuming you haven't heard much about that in the media.
No, I mean, just the numbers, you know, like in South Carolina, he's way down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard to please everybody, you know. But Michael Moore, you know, talking about Flint, Michigan, you know, and the way they've been crapped on over the years, and it's just wrong. And a president can only do so much, you know. Trump's done too much, and it's hurt the country. And people brag it up and applaud him for it, and it's just crazy, you know. I didn't go to Des Moines last night, you know, and I wouldn't walk across the street to see him, but he has done so much harm to this country in 3 years. It's just hard to imagine that one guy could do that much harm in 3 years, and then they're wanting to put him in for another 4.
Well, that's what's interesting to me, because all you hear from leading Democrats is, doesn't matter, I'll vote for a stapler over Trump. But you got this candidate, Bernie, has got all the majority of the young people out, and you need young people to come out. He's got a lot of energized elderly people, but he also has, he's doing incredibly well among Latinos, black people. So it seems like you have a candidate with a lot of energy, but they're kind of scared of that. I view it as, well, it's a candidate kind of challenging some of their interests. A lot of these Democrats, you know, have a lot of financial relationships with special interests. Yeah. You think that plays a part?
Oh, I'm sure it does. Just look how much money Trump has gotten from all the millionaires. You know, he did it practically with nothing 4 years ago, but now he's got a terrible, you know, a massive war chest, you know, start the campaign. And,
I guess the good news is Hillary outspent him 2-1, and he still won.
Yeah.
So apparently you don't need, if you actually have the energy, you could win. So we'll see.
and that helped him. He was out on the trail all the time. Hillary, what was it, like 1 to 4, probably?
Well, while she was doing fundraisers in the Hamptons, he was going to Michigan. Say what you want about him. He campaigned more than her in those states. She didn't even go to Wisconsin.
He made an awful lot of empty promises.
Oh, yeah.
Those states. And
I'm not defending him. I'm saying she outspent him, but he still won. So I think really money is not going to decide it this time. I think it's boots on the ground and energy. And I've been here just today, but I see a lot more energy in terms of organizers, even yard signs for Bernie. I'm not seeing much for Biden or the others.
yeah, I guess I haven't paid that much attention. There haven't been that many yet, But I guess I live out in the country, so I haven't driven around town that much. So I don't know. Especially leading up to the caucus, I'm sure there are, more signs than I'm aware of.
And are you hearing in your community, your friends, are they going to caucus?
Yeah.
Have their minds made up?
Sounds like it, yeah. Some of them want to start with one, and if they don't get the numbers, then they'll go to their second choice.
Or more of the moderate establishment types?
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens. What's your name?
Bill.
Hey, thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
What's this going to be on anyway?
We're live right now. It's on YouTube. Status Coup. Hey, let me give you my card.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for the interview.
Yeah? Check it out.
You're part of Bernie's, totally, or?
I'm a Bernie guy, yeah.
Okay.
I don't hide it. So, what we were talking about, what's interesting to me, the media, and I don't know how many people we got right now, so how you doing? Let me see how many people are watching here. The Senate will vote Wednesday on impeachment, so they're kicking that down the can. Could that have anything to do with the Iowa caucus being held Monday? Interesting. So what's really interesting is there you have somebody who was a Republican, right? He was a Republican, moved over to the Democratic Party for whatever reason. And all we hear from the Democratic Party establishment, remember Chuck Schumer in 2016? He said, for every blue collar worker we lose, we'll get 2 moderate Republicans. This was the brainiac, Chuck Schumer. And what they don't understand is a lot of Republicans actually on the issues favor progressive policies. You just have to talk to them because they've been brainwashed in most ways. They have been fed the Reaganism and the trickle down and all this stuff. So that gentleman, I think I appreciated him talking to us. He's a perfect example of somebody who is a Republican, more of a traditional guy, lower taxes, whatever. But he heard, not even from Bernie himself. Bernie's not here. But he heard from Michael Moore, who's working, a blue-collar guy, Bernie's wife, Jane Sanders, and he's saying, well, I like what I heard here. A lot of these things make sense. And the argument, the first thing he said to me was the argument that Michael Moore made, which was, well, maybe doing the same thing that we always do, running the same type of person, isn't a good idea. So the point is, the corporate media, and that's why it's so valuable to be out in the field. That's why you need to help us do more of this, because you actually get to counter the corporate nonsense. So the corporate media tells you people like him, right? People like that guy, who used to be a Republican, is now a Democrat. Because of what he's heard, what he learns in the media, he typically goes for the Joe Biden type, or the Pete type, or the Amy type. He's basically, he wasn't like, yeah, I'm definitely voting for Bernie. But he was clearly liked what he heard here. And that's not only how you win a primary, that's how you win a general election. Because contrary to what you hear in the media constantly, who won more open primaries in 2016? Open primaries are when independents could vote. Who won more open primaries? Bernie Sanders. That's just the facts. When independents could vote, he won more of those states over Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders, even though they keep saying, well, how's he going to win Michigan or Wisconsin, this and that, Jane Sanders pointed out, well, he won Michigan and Wisconsin, but it's not just that. He won a lot of he won a lot of red states. He won Montana in the primary. He won North Dakota. He won Wyoming. He won Nebraska. He won West Virginia. He won Kansas by over 30 points. He which ones am I forgetting here? Indiana. He won. By the way, Barack Obama in 2008 won Indiana in the general election. So the point is, and by the way, he lost Kentucky by less than a point, and he lost Missouri by 1 point. Yes, these are primaries. They're not the general elections. But in the Democratic primary, he won states that are red, meaning there were enough voters in those states, and they tend to be a little bit more moderate and conservative in those states, that were attracted to Bernie's message. So what I'm getting at here is you basically have a shit ton of propaganda from CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post that's not based in any fact. It's not based in data. The data is what I just told you. Bernie won those states. By the way, in 1990, Bernie won a House seat in Vermont. 1988, 2 years before he won the House seat in Vermont, he beat a incumbent Republican to win that House seat in Vermont. 2 years before that, Vermont voted for George Papa Bush in the presidency. Vermont was a red state as recently as the late 80s. So the point is, you really got to look at data. You got to look at historical trends. You also have to say, forget Bernie, take him out for a second. Look at the polls on these issues. Medicare for All has polled as high as 80% among Democrats. It is polled as high as 70% among all Americans. It's polled as high as 50% among Republicans. Now, when democratically establishment aligned groups do their own polls, and they do the wording in a certain way that make it seem like Big Brother's taking over, yes, the polls go down and there's less support. But when it's worded in a very straightforward way, how would you feel about a government healthcare system with no copays, no deductibles, no this, no that, and the government running it? It's polled as high as 80% among Democrats. Green New Deal polls extremely high. That gentleman, I don't know, what would you say, Jamal? Probably in his 70s? First thing he said was the climate, Green New Deal. There's a lot of older people, or I shouldn't say older, elderly, more senior, that are getting it. So my point is, listen, I don't BS around. I personally support Bernie, but I'm not distorting any facts. These are all facts that I'm sharing with you. That people could debate, people could debate all they want about, what helps economic growth, tax cuts or, government investment. We could have a debate, but you can't debate facts. You can't debate who won these states, who does better among independents, who does better among Republicans. And by the way, Elizabeth Warren, she said during the debate, and her and Amy Klobuchar have never lost an election. You've only ran 2 elections. Nobody wanted to say that. Elizabeth Warren's only run 2 elections in Massachusetts, a fairly Democratic state. Bernie Sanders, between running for mayor, Congress, Senate, has run, I don't have the exact number, but a lot more than one. So the point is, there has been a lot of propaganda out there because, as we're seeing from the DNC news today, I feel they'd rather lose to Trump than let Bernie Sanders even breathe near the White House. I mean, look at it. Look at it. Why, right before the Iowa caucus, why would they be changing the rules? That the rules for the debates has been one of the most contested issues this whole primary. Tulsi Gabbard was left out of debates because of the 2-category threshold. You have to have X amount of donors and X number as high up as on the polls. Cory Booker has been left out. Not a fan, but he's been left out because of that. Andrew Yang has been left out because of those thresholds. Now, all of a sudden, because a billionaire who would not only maintain the status quo, double down on the status quo. That's why we need a status coup. Become a member, statuscoup.com/join. $5 a month. You could support actual in-the-field reporting. Do you see CNN out in the trenches here in Iowa? I do not. I see them doing a lot of propaganda. I see them wall-to-wall impeachment. I don't see them at smaller Bernie Sanders events. I don't see them interviewing volunteers. I certainly don't see them, if I get lucky enough, I don't want to give it away, but I plan on going to visit Uncle Joe tomorrow. I plan on going to visit Uncle Joe tomorrow morning. I don't see them asking what I'm going to ask. Let's just leave it at that. If I even get close to him, because now, if you've seen it, his campaign actually is not allowing him to even answer questions from reporters. A reporter asked him questions about Social Security. His campaign has put essentially a gag order on Joe Biden. They are not allowing him to actually speak to reporters. They gave him a piece of paper with some bullets. I don't know what they wrote, but whatever they wrote was his position on Social Security, and he handed it to them. Wait a minute. Let me understand something. Joe Biden's campaign, in response to, frankly, mild attacks from Bernie Sanders' campaign, security record, his campaign is gag ordering him, and he is handing them a piece of paper. What is he going to do if he's the nominee against Donald Trump and $200 million the RNC is throwing? What is he going to? What are reporters going to have to ask him a question while he's lying in bed with an ice pack? This is incredible that they are calling this person. Forget whether you agree with him ideologically or not. You need to. Donald Trump is one of the. I mean, you want to talk snakes. You want to talk just down and dirty. You can't beat Donald Trump if somebody can't even answer questions in response to, frankly, not even that aggressive of attacks by Bernie Sanders' campaign. Bernie Sanders' campaign isn't like all over Iowa on TV bashing Joe Biden. This is mostly David Sirota on Twitter. And they're not letting him answer questions. That is a major red flag if you are a Democrat. So let me read some comments, questions, concerns, tell you more. Hold on. Jordan, put on some extra aftershave. Would make for some great clips. Aftershave? What's wrong with my shave? You got a problem? We got 530 people watching. Press that like button. So let me tell you what we're planning to do here in Iowa. We are 3 days away from the Iowa caucus, and there is a lot planned this weekend. But when you're in the field, particularly right before a caucus, things can change very quickly. It really depends as news comes in. You know, I already have some volunteers, activists sending me messages about some shenanigans going on, so we might chase that news if we get tips on any types of shenanigans going on. We might go tomorrow. There's several Congress people that support Bernie going out canvassing for Bernie with volunteers, so we're going to try to check those out. Unfortunately, Iowa is actually a very large state, so not everything is very close. So like tonight, for this, we had to drive about an hour and 15 minutes from where we're staying in Des Moines. But we're also, tomorrow morning, if you're up, I'm not sure if we're going to go live yet. We'll see. Joe Biden has an event here in Iowa. I plan on going. I don't know if the campaign is going to make him available to the media. My gut is they won't, but I'm going to do what I do anyway and try to get a question in front of him. I'm not going to give my cards away yet, but I do have some questions to ask him. Looking at the last few days, he seems to have an affection for grabbing people by the jacket shoulder, so I'll have to make sure I'm dressed well if he's going to do that to me. But I'm just going to ask him a few questions. If he gives me a piece of paper, you know, I'll report what the piece of paper says. So we're going to go cover Middle Class Joe in the morning, then cover some Bernie stuff. Their Congressman Ilhan Omar is in Iowa right now for Bernie Sanders. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib is in Iowa right now for Bernie. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal was in Iowa today for Bernie. Congressman Ro Khanna will be in Iowa this weekend for Bernie. So everybody's coming in. And I don't have I'm live, so I can't read. If there's new polls that came in within the hour, I haven't seen them. But this morning, it was the first national poll from NBC News, Wall Street Journal that had Bernie in the lead. To be specific, he's in the lead by a point, but it had like a 4% margin of error. So basically, him and Biden were tied in this NBC News, Wall Street Journal poll nationally. That's pretty significant because Biden, for the most part, in these major polls, talking Quinnipiac, NBC News, USA Today, Suffolk, most of the national polls, Biden has had a comfortable lead for the last couple months. I always say, take it with a grain of salt because most of these polls wildly oversample people over the age of 50, wildly undersample younger people. But the fact that Bernie is at 27 and Biden was at 26, again, margin of error, just call it tied, pretty significant. It goes with all the other polls that show Bernie on a huge upswing. You also have an Iowa poll today. I apologize, I don't have the name of the poll in front of me. An Iowa poll today had Bernie up, I believe, by 6 points. I spoke with someone today, I won't say who because it was lunch, but it's a former congressional candidate, progressive congressional candidate. We were talking. He told me that based on this person's knowledge of the Iowa caucus, because this person comes from Iowa originally, he said it's looking pretty good. I mean, it's a toss-up, he said, but he said it's looking pretty good. Also said that, which I agree with, too, the fact that you see the DNC making this rules change before the Iowa caucus for basically call it the the Bloomberg change. They're changing things to allow Bloomberg in. To me, that indicates something. You know, we always talk about public polling. All the campaigns have internal polling that they do not share. They do share it when it's very good for them, right? Well, if the DNC, and let's talk about what the DNC is, it's just a collection of Hillary Clinton people, Bill Clinton people, Barack Obama people, you know, those alumni and lifetime donors and all that. If the DNC, because no decision is made just by Tom Perez, there's a lot of influences and donors involved in making these decisions. If right before Iowa, they are paving the way for Michael Bloomberg to be able to debate right after New Hampshire, meaning Michael Bloomberg could be in a debate right after the New Hampshire primary. Well, why would they be doing that now? Could it be that some of the candidates they were banking on winning in Iowa and New Hampshire, their internal numbers are not looking so hot? Could it be middle-class Joe's numbers are not looking so hot? Could it be, and again, I'm a reporter, I'm just speculating, but I don't have any intel here. Could it be that President Obama and his advisors and people who actually, truly, you know, him and Biden have some love and like each other, could be kind of throwing their weight in because they see, I mean, all you got to do is look at the video that's coming out, that this train's losing steam here. It's not just the numbers, it's the video clips, it's the small crowds you see. Like, for example, this crowd for Bernie, I mean, it was small, I'm not going to lie to you. It was a small casino, maybe, I don't know, less than 100 people here, maybe probably 50, but this is a more rural conservative area. But there's other events in Iowa where Bernie's pulling in 1,200, 1,500. There was, I think, 1,200 people for AOC, and Bernie wasn't even here. So the point is, you know, the media likes to say, don't look at crowd size. Well, Donald Trump had major crowds in 2016, and he won. You know, as that gentleman pointed out, okay, Hillary won by 3 million votes. If we had a sane United States, she'd be president. Whether you like that or not, she should have been president. The popular vote should be the president. However, we don't. So the point is, crowds do matter because it translates. It's not just the number of people there. It's the number of people that create energy, that create movement. You know, the pollsters dismissed this, but when in 2016, I paid a lot less attention to the polls than I did all the yard signs I saw in Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. It was like a sea of Trump everywhere, and I just didn't see a lot of Hillary Clinton. That's the kinds of things that I'm looking at. And from what I've heard and what I've seen so far, I haven't seen one Biden billboard. I haven't seen Biden yard signs. Now, there could be more 3 hours away in Sioux City, which is definitely a more conservative part of Iowa. But where I've been, in Des Moines area, now an hour away, I haven't seen much of it. So the bottom line is, it is a toss-up. I'm not a political strategist, but if I was Bernie's campaign, my mentality would be we're 5 points down and just go at it like you're 5 points down. Don't treat it like you've got this one. But to me, the fact that the DNC before Iowa is basically just like opening the garden gates for Michael Bloomberg, that's not a good sign for Joe Biden. To me, that is a indicative sign of waving the white flag and not wanting to see. The DNC and the Dems don't want to make the same mistake that the Republican never-Trumpers made. The never-Trumpers waited too long. They waited too long to the point Trump was already unstoppable to choose someone to rally around. I would love it personally if the Democrats' knight in shining armor was billionaire Bloomberg. Oh my God, I would love that. Can you imagine Bernie Sanders debating Michael Bloomberg? I think it's a gift from the Lord to Bernie Sanders, if that's the case. But what it does tell is the DNC is not being a neutral arbiter. When you just throw out the rules, when you totally throw out the rules that you chose to suppress Tulsi Gabbard from getting on that debate stage based on these rules, you chose to suppress Andrew Yang from getting on the debate stage with these rules. Frankly, not that I care, but like Michael Bennett, these other candidates. But then for a billionaire who is self-funding, who you're delusional enough to think can defeat Donald Trump, because the Democratic Party truly, I bet you they actually think Michael Bloomberg would be a great candidate to defeat Donald Trump. If Michael Bloomberg is the Democratic nominee, it's going to make the results in 2016 look close. I promise you. So we shall see. We shall see. So let me read a couple comments, questions, concerns. Bernie's people kick me out whenever, please. I don't, if I'm keeping you. Bye-bye, Sloppy Joe, somebody says. I want a Biden bobblehead that I could, oh, I'm not going to read that. That's not nice. Jordan just asked Biden what acne, Jesus. Well, you guys need to talk, you know, let's not be so mean about it. Make it rain for Jordan reporting around in Iowa. Thank you, Anat, my beautiful girlfriend. And by the way, this is a super chat. I will ask for pity chats. You could ask Jamal. I could barely steer the wheel. I got a little pinched nerve in my neck. Jen is sick, but she's in the super chat. We are going around Iowa hardcore for you. And I don't see CNN doing it. So statuscoup.com/join. As of going live for this live stream, I believe we were at 878 Status Coup members. I'm just going to tell you straight, okay? We got to get to 1,000 members, lickety split. I would like to get to 1,000 members by the end of the New Hampshire primary. So that would be, if my math is right, I did fail in 11th grade, that would be an additional 122 members in the next 2 weeks. Here's why I think we could do it. I subscribe to a cheesy quote. If you've ever seen the movie Hardball with Keanu Reeves, you ever see that movie? Yeah. All right, Hardball with Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves was, you know, kind of like a middle-class white dude who fell hard on his luck and went to go be a baseball coach for an inner-city African-American baseball players. Obviously, there was a big kind of gap between this guy who kind of came from privilege and inner-city black young men playing baseball. And Keanu Reeves said to these kids, half of life is just showing up. And that is the truth. Good things happen when you get in the trenches. And when I say in the trenches, I'm not going around chasing Joe Biden or Pete or trying to get access to them, because the truth is, it really doesn't matter. I don't need access to them. All I need is access to the people. It is a lot more valuable to interview people, to interview volunteers. We've already interviewed several Bernie volunteers, because that's where you actually get the truth. That's where you're actually able to show, well, you could tell with this guy, he hadn't heard a damn thing about Pete Buttigieg's real record in South Bend. Hadn't heard a thing. He hadn't heard just about it. I told him about Joe Biden's record. It sounded like I was just introducing him to the world. This is how you actually get more people, as the cool kids say, woke. You have to go out and speak with people. You have to give the microphone back to the people. Most of the media chooses to just run around like deer in the headlights, trying to, like, you know, get a soundbite, get Joe to say something bad about Bernie, or get Pete to say something, and just kind of create this cross-sectional, sensational infotainment crap. We're not interested. I'm going to go to Biden's event tomorrow because I want to see if I can get a question in for him. But I'll speak with his supporters. That's what I want the most, because this is how you wake more people up. I remember in 2016, yes, I enjoyed covering Trump and interviewing his supporters, but I actually enjoyed interviewing Hillary Clinton supporters more, because every 1 out of 10, you get an aha moment where mid-interview you say right, but how did that work out? I remember saying to one woman in New York who was talking about her foreign policy experience, and I said, well, somebody could have a great resume, but what if the things on the resume led to 1 million people somewhere else in the world dying? Is that so great? And she stopped and was like, yeah, I've never thought about it like that. So there is a lot of value. And I'm not here, I just want to be clear. I'm a Bernie guy, but I'm a journalist first. So I'm not here to get him elected. He either wins or loses. But I'm here to prop up the voices of people that you'll never see in the corporate media, because the corporate media exists to cover up these people, to not actually elevate their stories or your stories. So that's why we're here. That's my little spiel. Sign up, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. There are higher plans too, but we set it as low as $5 a month because we really want to make it available to everyone. And to be honest, and Jen could tell you in the super chat, I think $5 a month doesn't help us. The more people we get to sign up at $5 or $10 or whatever you could do, is the more trips we could take, is the better tech we could get. Obviously, we have some audio issues from time to time, blah, 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 not blaming you. But we're very low staffed, and we don't have always the right equipment. And I don't have a producer. I'm doing 25 things at once. Don't get mad at me, Jen. Sometimes I do things I shouldn't, but I didn't text and drive that much today, I promise. So we need more staff. We need help for Jen. We want to hire another reporter. There's a lot of things we want to do. So sign up, statuscoup.com/join. The other thing before I go, if you haven't noticed, YouTube isn't always notifying you when we're live. When I say isn't always notifying you, I mean isn't notifying you pretty much ever when we're live. You can beat YouTube. You can beat the YouTube suppression. Text Coup, C-O-U-P, to 474747. So text C-O-U-P to 474747. That will get you added to our text list. We texted before, for this live stream, we texted. These texts actually cost us a lot of money, so we're not texting a ton, but we are texting here and there, and it really is great because we keep seeing more and more people coming into the live stream saying, I didn't get a notification, but I got your text. That's the point. We want to make sure people know when we're live. Obviously, you can't watch every live stream. You got to work or whatever, but we want people to know when we're live, because what's the point of being here if YouTube is hiding us in a cave that you can't see? So sign up to our text list. Also sign up to our email list. That's statuscoup.com. Enter your email. Again, we're going to cover Biden tomorrow. We're going to cover a few other things. I need to go get some dinner and sleep because these are long days. Jamal Jones behind the camera. This was the Bernie rally. And how about $5 a month? Statuscoup.com/join. Let me end on a positive note. 222. Oh, we just got a new member, Barbara. Barbara, new member, Barbara. Love it, love it. New member, Isaiah. Holy cow, you guys are coming in. So we're now at 880. 880 Status Coup members, 20 members away from 900. And I am here to make a promise to you, okay? Jamal, are you going to keep me to this promise? Yeah. Hold on. Let's hear from Jamal. You're going to keep me to this promise?
I'm going to hold Jordan to this promise.
If we get to 900 members, that's 20 more members by tomorrow, and if it snows before or during the Iowa caucus, I will come live to you. If we get to 900, I will come live to you reporting the news while doing Snow Angels. That I promise you. That is worth 20 new members. I will report live, and Jamal will figure out a way to shoot it while doing Snow Angels. I think that's, what do the kids call it? A meme?
Yeah.
A GIF?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's do it. And for those of you saying, well, Jordan, you promised me a workout video and you haven't given it to me yet. I found it on my phone. I found the workout video on my phone. We are going to upload me doing workouts to the YouTube channel, Lickety Split. So, with that, I bid you adieu. Thank you for watching. Statuscoup.com/join. We're almost at 2 days. So things are about to get crazy. Signing off. Peace out.